Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Opportunity.
Opportunity has to knock twice on Andy Animals Live.
Yes. Hey,
How's it going?
Ermos, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. And yourself?
I am good. Man, it seems like forever since we had an A&E, but we only skipped the Labor Day weekend. Hope everybody had a good Labor Day weekend. Um, just a little housekeeping. Welcome, everyone. This is the Andy and Ermos show. Um, if you are new to this, we do have a kind of policy here. We like people to put in the chat. If you're a first-time contender or repeat offender and where you're from, we like to know where our audience is from. Also, you can ask questions throughout the webinar. Please post those into the Q&A and not the chat. Chat is for comments and things like that, but questions go into the Q&A, and we would love it if you could stay on topic. This is not a plan craft session. This is not an ask me anything session about all, support type of things. This is on topic with what we're talking about today. And I'll also going to post a link in there for any of those of you who have been with Plansville for a while. We just want to get all the PlanCraft calendar sessions sorted out. So I'm going to put a link in there and suggest that you go back and re-register for each of the sessions so that it updates your calendar correctly. Without further ado, over to you, Ermos. And while you're doing that, I'm going to post that registration link in there.
Thank you very much. And we'll give you an update as to why Playing Craft is so important for you guys to kind of register and get engaged. But it's a Monday, Andy, and that's my favorite day of the week. So TGIM, thank God it's Monday. It's another opportunity for myself and Andy to bring some value, hopefully make a difference in your life. And then in turn, you can make a difference in one of your clients and prospects' lives. And that's how we all win. Andy?
Yep, absolutely. And maybe give a little explainer for the new ones. Why should you listen to us?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like, why the heck should you listen to us? I mean, for one, we're ridiculously good looking. Maybe not, but we've been doing this for a very long time, and everything we discuss are from advisors, by advisors, because Andy and I have been advisors for a very long time. So everything we talk about is field tested, meaning it's proven, real experiences by real people, either myself or Andy, or the advisors that we coach personally. It could be their experience as well. But the point of the matter is everything that we talk about is proven. So you can just take it and run with it. Andy.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's why we love this so much. And I'm super excited for today's topic. Hopefully we can get through all of it, but we're not going to rush. So we get to where we get to. And Ermos, why don't you introduce what we're talking about here?
Yeah, this was a fun deck to put together, and I went back to a lot of the conversations I've been having with advisors of late, and I've identified 9. I mean, there could have easily been 90, but I chose these 9 because I think these are mistakes that can be rectified and really make a difference in an advisor's practice and in their lives. So today's topic, Andy, is 9 mistakes financial advisors make when prospecting.
Yeah, absolutely. And something I want to point out, Amos, is that because you and I coach advisors all the time on an ongoing basis, you may have heard some of these things before, but part of the reason that we want to reinforce these is because they are so common, they come up, and they're so very important. And this first one, I think, is the biggest one, and we'll unpack why that's so important that we discuss this topic and not skirt this issue.
Yeah, and that's imposter syndrome. I know that's a big thing. And the crazy thing, Andy, I mean, speaking from experience, I see this all the time. And it doesn't matter if the advisor is 6 months in, 6 years in, 30 years in. It seems like advisors sometimes hit a wall, a rut, and they just can't get out of it. And they start second guessing, why people should work with them. And which it's amazing to me. Now, here's the key part. Imposter syndrome really only happens to people who have some success. Because if you've never had success before, then there's nothing to feel as an imposter for. So this is actually a good thing. If you are experiencing imposter syndrome, this may actually be a good sign that you're actually having some success. So first of all, it's believing that you don't have something valuable to offer. So again, whether you're new or you're old or mature in the business, a lot of times if you get some rejection, if you get some people that are not paying attention to you for whatever reason, you may feel like all of a sudden you don't have it anymore. That is not the case. So some of the things that people think they need, oh, you know what, Ermos, I don't have a certification or the right certification. If I had that, oh my goodness, then everything would be fantastic. Everyone would just line up to talk to me. Or I'm not worthy of $1 million account because I'm new. I don't have access to all the right investments. Again, these are all BS things. And the new one is a big one. So at the end of the day, you have to be providing value. Can you leave somebody better than you found them? Because if the answer is yes, then what difference does it make if you're new? Plus, new people typically have a support system they can lean on. So being new is not really a reason to have imposter syndrome. The important thing here, Andy, is it is psychological. Imposter syndrome will only exist in your head. It is not real. Certifications will rarely be a deciding factor for most people. Now, to be honest, I've had individuals tell me that, Ermos, the reason why I reached out to you is because you're a CFP. But I assure you, out of all the clients that I've picked up over the years, that was literally a handful of clients that ever even brought up that I was a CFP. So it's never going to be a differentiating factor for you as a person, whether you're going to be successful in this career or not. Value comes in many forms. It may not be your amazing ability to pick funds or investments or even financial planning. Sometimes people just want a listening ear. The fact that you're kind, the fact that you're genuine, the fact that you're making them feel heard and understood, a lot of times could be the deciding factor of them choosing you over somebody who actually has a bunch of designations. And at the end of the day, keep messages from people that praise you and revisit it. So what I mean by that is, again, it doesn't matter how successful you've been and whether you've been doing this for a short period of time or a long period of time. As you get messages from your clients or even your prospects that says, Andy, I really love what you did with this. We wouldn't know what we'd do without you. Help me. Thank you for paying off my mortgage faster. Help me for this. Help me for that. Or, you know what? You've just been a really good friend all these years. Whenever you get one of those messages through email or whatever it is, create a folder. Put those messages in that folder. And anytime at all that you feel that you are suffering from imposter syndrome, go back and read those messages and see what amazing things your clients had to say about you. And then you will get that pick-me-up that you need to get out of that funk and you can move forward. Andy.
Yeah, absolutely. And we like to call that folder a success folder, right? And to Ermos's point, put those client wins, those testimonials, those milestones, write yourself a note when you've converted a great client or you just felt like you did something amazing. Put that in there. And when you're feeling that imposter syndrome, and I don't know that ever goes away. I still have it sometimes too. And then I go back and I look at posts that I made on LinkedIn, or maybe I'll call a client, and there's a great way to do that too. You want to get yourself boosted up for doing prospecting calls. Before you do that, call one of your clients just to say hello, see how they're doing or whatever, to give you that boost and that really solid, strong reminder that you're not an imposter. You absolutely can do this. And if I could talk about my own personal experience when I started in this industry, and hopefully this inspires you, I knew nothing. I had never had a client-facing role before or made outbound calls. I knew almost nothing about financial matters. I wasn't certified initially when I was first doing this, but I was still able to turn prospects into clients. So it's not about the numbers. It's not about necessarily all the letters after your name, at least initially, right? And initially, people don't care about that. They want to know, do you care about them? And we talk about this ad nauseum, but for good reason. And I don't know wherever you are, but Ermos and I have experienced advisors that we've talked to who've had incredible success and still have that imposter syndrome. So don't think that, oh, that only happens to me because I'm not at that level yet. It happens to everyone, right? It's just human nature, and this is the way to combat those systems. Those
No,
symptoms.
Andy, I was just going to add there, a fun little exercise for the people listening today. what I would do is ask the advisor, why do you think your clients are with you? And then always come up with 4 or 5 things. And it's always something to do with the finance, right? Oh, it's my ability to pick funds, or it is my estate planning or saving taxes. And then the fun exercise is I get them to call their top 5 clients and ask them the question, I'm just kind of doing a little bit of research to find out why my clients are with me. And I'm just kind of curious, why did you end up working with me? And it's almost always the exact opposite of what they thought it was. It had something to do with, being trustworthy, being a good listener, being there for them, being a good friend, all this kind of stuff, making them feel heard and understood. And in the advisor's mind, their thinking is, oh, it's all these financial planning things, but in the end, it's got nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with the emotional and the communication part.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so this next one, and I apologize, but are you insane? Like, seriously? And it's funny because I was talking to another advisor over the weekend, and he says, "Yeah, this is me," right? So it's sending the same message over and over and over again, the same email message or the same LinkedIn message, and then they think they're going to get something different in return. As Albert Einstein once coined, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So my advice to you is you need to mix it up. So if you send an email, you don't send another email, you send a text, and then maybe it's a phone call or even a video. And I'm going to get Andy to talk about the Loom videos that he used to send, or coach his advisors on how to send as well. It could be LinkedIn DMs, direct mail, carrier pigeons, smoke signals, whatever it is. You just need to mix it up, because the reality is not everyone responds to certain medium. For me, for instance, if you try calling me, you'll probably never get a hold of me. I don't even answer my mom's calls. It's not true, but but if you text me, I'll text you back almost immediately. So everyone's a little bit different. Some are emails, some are texts, some are phone calls. But the thing is, you don't know what your prospect's favorite mode of communication is. So you have to mix it up, and always, always, always provide some sort of value with a clear call to action. Going over one of the advisors' emails, and his complaint to me, Andy, was kind of funny. He goes, "Well, hardly anyone ever responds to my emails." I said, "Okay, that's interesting. I'd love to see if I can help you out. Why don't you send me the last 10 emails you sent?" And Andy, not one of them had any call to action. So basically, he was just sending an email with information, with no real clear indication of what he expected the prospect and or the client to do. So of course they're not responding. So you have to have that call to action on every single communication. Andy.
Yeah, and to that point, small tweaks can lead to huge improvements, right? I know, back in the early days, when I was a captive advisor at Planswell, and this was the fun about Planswell, was we just tried things, we experimented, and everybody got to just tweak an ad that Planswell was running, to get people to fill out the questionnaire. They could change little things in the title or little bits about the content, but not major changes. And it was funny, like one little tweak got one of the advisors, the ad that we ran his copy, got a huge spike in engagement. And it was just by adding the word surprisingly to the beginning of, most, people don't know that they, these little mistakes that they make could be the difference between retiring the way they want and not retiring at all. And just by adding surprisingly, most people don't know that, boom, the engagement shot through the roof. So it's the same thing here. You've got to keep constantly innovating and reiterating, not huge ones, but little tweaks here and there. And obviously, not having a call to action is insane, right? You're basically saying, "Hey, here's a bunch of words, but I'm not telling you what to do with it, or even leading you anyway." And our job is to guide people to do things that are going to make a difference in their life. If we can't even get that straight onto what we want people to do, or what the conclusion that we want to get them to get to, then you're just spinning your wheels there. So I think this is a really important one. And believe me, I made this mistake too. Because sometimes I get lazy and I'm like, oh, I'll just send this same thing out, and it never works ever. So, physician, heal thyself, right? And next one.
I love that, Andy.
This is key.
Yeah, but I love that. I'm gonna go back for a second. Surprisingly, it's amazing how one word can make a difference. And there's some research that shows if you add the word because. So if you want to make a statement and you want them to do something, if you add the word because this is what's going to happen, that alone dramatically increases the response rate as well.
Oh, agreed. I tell this to everybody that we coach and talk to. I'm like, because is the strongest word in sales and the most important word in sales. You know, it's always validating whatever it is that your ask is. The reason I say this is because the reason I ask you to do this is because it instantly triggers, I don't know, the logic part of our brain to actually do what is necessary.
I love this. This is fun stuff to me, the whole psychology. All right. So the third one is inconsistency. Uh, Prospecting has to be done on a regular basis. And I'm going to have to take a little bit of time here and kind of break it down because this is so important. There is something called momentum, and it is so huge when it comes to financial advisors and when it comes to prospecting. And I'm going to go back down to the bottom there and kind of give my analogy. Let's assume that you were given a task. So I'm going to give Andy an opportunity to shoot 100 free throws, but we're going to do it in two different ways. The first time Andy's going to shoot free throws is I'm going to get him to shoot one free throw per day. So one per day for 100 days. There's no warm-ups. There's nothing to like. There's nothing. You just walk up to the free throw line and you shoot one free throw. And if it goes in, great. If not, that's it. But then you walk away and you come back the next day and you do the same thing. Now imagine doing that. No practice, no warm-ups, and just doing one free throw and then walking away. And then the other option is I get Andy to come in and you know what? We're going to do 100 today. And let's see how many he gets in. At some point, there's a little bit of warm up. He's going to find a rhythm and he's going to start draining more and more of those free throws. It only makes sense that you will get far better results by doing more of what you're doing. So the way momentum works is once you start making the calls and the prospecting and you get into the rhythm of handling objections and asking the right questions and engaging in really good conversations, everything becomes so much easier. And if you remain consistent, you will avoid the whole feast or famine cycle. And it's hard to get started. Sometimes advisors, and I see this even with some of my own advisors, they are the victim of their own success. So what do I mean by that? They're struggling. You show them how to prospect. They start getting all these prospects into their pipeline. They start working with them. And then guess what? They're busy. And then they have to put these prospects through their funnel, right? Or through their process. And then at the end, yeah, fantastic. You've captured and converted a bunch of new clients, but now you haven't done any prospecting for the past 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. And it's very difficult for them to kind of ramp it up again. So test your approaches to see if one works better than another, because that's a big one as well. But getting into the flow makes things so much easier. And Andy, I know you love this. You understand that if you're making calls and then you book a meeting, and we're going to talk about detachment from the outcome, but you book a meeting, then all of a sudden everything else becomes gravy, right? Because if you set a goal to book one meeting that day, and then you book that first meeting, and then all of a sudden you have no problem making more calls because now every meeting that you book from here on in ends up being a bonus. So it's kind of like the pressure's been taken off and you actually make more calls. And then on good days, you end up booking 3 or 4 meetings versus the days that you kind of struggled and you only booked none or one. Andy.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I love that analogy. If I can add one to my as well, you got to understand that inconsistent outreach and behavior is the silent killer of growth. And on the lines of growth, imagine watering a garden every couple of weeks, right? You can't expect the plants to grow, you know, and it's the same with marketing. You're not showing up consistently, prospects won't remember you and you'll be starting from scratch again. And you got to understand that start stop approach creates gaps in your pipeline, which is going to leave you scrambling later. Whereas just keeping even keel with it is just going to be so much easier. It's why we talk about creating habits all the time. It's way easier to maintain a habit than it is to start and stop one. Okay. But I'm not going to elaborate beyond that.
I may actually have a nice analogy for this as well. Think of your prospecting think of your prospecting strategies and efforts like a garden hose, because Andy, you gave me that idea just now. So you turn the tap on your garden hose and no water comes out right away. Why? Because it's going to take time for the water to make it through the hose before it starts coming out. This is the exact same thing as when it comes to your prospects. You don't just call somebody and then the same day they become a client. There's a process. It may take a week, it may take a month, but everyone has a process. It takes time. The key here is keep the hose on all the time, or keep the tap turned on all the time, so that when the clients start coming out, they're consistent and they're ongoing. If you're starting and stopping the tap because you're prospecting for 2 weeks and then you're stopping for 2 weeks, then you're going to get those huge interruptions in between, and that's where the feast or famine comes in. So think about that when you're making calls and you want to be consistent. Think of it as turning on the tap on a hose, because once you keep that tap turned on, then the clients on the other end become consistent and hopefully never ending.
Yeah, and listen, different flowers, different plants are going to bloom at different rates too. If we're staying on top of that same analogy, right? Some things grow quickly, some things take more time, but they still need that water. They still need that nurturing over time. And this is why we beat this drum so loudly and consistently. Consistently. All right, back to you, Ramos.
Awesome. All right. Okay, so I believe this may be our last one, because I really like the fact that we're digging a little bit deep on this. Hopefully, if people have questions, they can throw it into the Q&A right now. But selling too early. Andy, my goodness, we see this in PlanCraft a lot, where people are struggling. They're asking, well, why isn't this working? A lot of time is because they're selling way too early in the process. So shortening the process, if your process takes a month, and you're trying to shorten it into like a week or less, you're going to come across as being pushy and salesy. And what you're doing is the opposite of what you want to happen. You're actually pushing people away. So what typically happens on that first call, you just want to build rapport. That is it. You're not, even if you didn't book a meeting, you just want to build rapport, ask some questions. And really the purpose of that first call is to set up a second call. Because chances are you caught them at a bad time. They're going through a drive-through. Maybe they're in the middle of a meeting or whatever it is. So this may not be, or typically it won't be the best time for them to actually have an engaged conversation with you. So setting up a second call is what your goal should be on after the first call. So now you made it to the second call. Fantastic. This is where you dig a little bit deeper. This is the discovery session. Find the pain points. I cannot emphasize enough. No pain points equals no sale. Period. End of story. So at the end of that, you make them feel heard and understood, meaning that you are not talking at them. You are basically educating them. And at the end of the day, you're listening to them. So the ratio here is 80% them talking and only 20% you talking. And you talking is mostly just asking questions. From there, we get to the third call. And when I say call, this could be an actual meeting. You deliver your recommendations, which solve the pain points. That is the whole purpose. They told you what they want. And this is the amazing thing, Andy. If done properly, your prospects will tell you exactly what they need to hear for them to become clients. Andy, I have these pain points. I pay too much tax. I'm worried about my kids. I'm whatever it is. I'm worried about retirement. I'm going to run out of money. They're telling you their pains. And if you actually listen to them and you put together recommendations and strategies to deliver you getting rid of their pain points, that's what they want. Solve their pain points. Andy, this is like right out of your playbook here. So when you're talking to them and they give you 3 pain points, you go back to them and say, Andy, if I can help you with pain point A, pain point B, pain point C, would that be helpful? Like, would that be helpful, Andy, if I can solve this for you? And if you've done this properly, you will never have to ask for the business, because if you did everything properly, by the end of the process, your prospect is going to ask you, or sorry, we're going to ask the question, how would you like to proceed from here? So the prospect is deciding whether or not they're going to become clients, because if the answer is not what you're looking for, then all that means is they're not saying no to you. What they are saying is, I think I require a little bit more information before I can actually decide. Andy?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we talk about ditching the pitch, and oftentimes I think we don't even realize we're pitching, right? Like when you're having that initial call with somebody and they might say, oh, my advisor's fees are too high. That is not your opportunity to say, oh, well, I have some of the lowest fees out there. Or, you don't want to solve a problem immediately. You want to have a buildup of what do they want? What do they need? Why do they want that? How would it make them feel to get that? And what do they think could happen that might throw a monkey wrench in that? Get them to feel that pain. And that ties into something that I guess we're going to talk about next week is not researching your prospects. Well, part of that first call that you're calling a prospect, especially in the context of Planswell, is you're doing your research. You're almost stopping a person on the street saying, hey, can I ask you a couple questions about financial planning? What matters to you? What's top of mind? When would you like to retire? All these things. Why that number? Why that age? How would that make you feel? Type of thing. You've got to create that value before there would be any compelling reason for somebody to ever speak to you again. And that carries over to the consultation. But this is asking questions. It really comes down to that. And as Ermos already mentioned, building that rapport and trust before introducing solutions is absolutely paramount. It's about timing. If you start pitching, you're scaring off that prospect, right? And when you tie back into that imposter syndrome thing that we talked about at the beginning, right? It's knowing that absolutely you can help these people in probably a plethora of ways, but you need to know what matters to them. And you cannot paint everybody with the same brush. And I'm going to tie that right into a question that got asked here, which kind of sounded like a support question, but I think it's relevant. It was, what do I say to Planswell leads that fell through the cracks a year ago and were never contacted? Well, it's really simple. Hey, I noticed you filled out this thing and never spoke to an advisor. What's been going on the last year? And why did you fill that questionnaire out a year ago? What's happened since then? That's it. There's no magic to it. There's magic to it, but it's not complicated. Just ask somebody what's on their mind. What was on their mind a year ago? That's it. Because and we talk about this, I think we've talked about this in PlanCraft groups before, Ermos. Sometimes those leads or households that are a year old are even more valuable because now you can say, what have you done in the last year? And when they say nothing, well, boy, oh boy, do you have value that you can add there. But you can ask them, how do you think not doing something in the last year or solving these problems has affected you? People don't believe what you say. They believe what they say. And the more you can get them to say, the more likely they're going to get to the conclusion that talking to you or moving further down the chain after consultation, why they should move ahead and work with you, they're going to say why. If you ask the questions right and you present correctly, they will convince themselves that this is the best thing to do. And it'll be easy. And we'll hear those 5 magic words. What are the next steps? Trust us on this. We have heard this a bazillion times. Ermos?
Yeah, those are all excellent points. Some of those older leads truly are the best leads because as Andy was saying, just ask the question. So how much better would your financial situation be today if you solved this a year ago? Well, obviously it's going to be a big difference. So what's going to happen if another year goes by and you still didn't fix these problems? Oh, well, that's not going to be good. So then let's roll up our sleeves and let's kind of get to work. I mean, that's kind of, I'm paraphrasing here. Every process is a little bit different, but that is in essence what you should be doing. Just put the onus back on them. You had this problem a year ago. A year has gone by. You've done nothing. So that's an opportunity missed. And if you don't work with me today or now, then this problem will persist for another year or even longer. And then think how much more taxes you're paying or how much less money you're going to have in retirement, all these other things as well. So yeah, some of those leads from a year ago are absolute gold. Andy?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is nice. We got a question about, how do I get somebody on the phone in the first place? I've called and dripped on stuff, which is a nice way to lead into, and I'm not going to answer that question, but I'm going to give you the reason why Planecraft is so important. So we're gonna kind of jump. We're gonna reserve. We have another like 4 or 5 things that are absolutely paramount, which I guess we're gonna share next week. But this is why Planecraft is so important. You know, people have questions. They want to hear from other advisors who've already been having success, and where can they get that help in real time where there's not an agenda like we have today. And that's absolutely why you should join Planecraft. You hang around with winners. And what we consider winners are people who are learners, people who ask questions. And that's what is so valuable about Planecraft. Eramos and I love doing Planecraft. We're jazzed up after it. You know, we message each other after going, that was fire, man. Did you hear what Joe said? Did you hear what Sally said? It was amazing. And, you know, especially when we hear those breakthrough stories, right? And those were sometimes people that were struggling in the first couple of months. And so that gives us even more greater satisfaction. So join Plancraft. I did put into the link early on. I'll try to do it again right here. Go register for Plancraft. If you want to contact Eramos and I, there's our way to get in touch with us via email. If you are not a Planswell partner and you want to find out more about Planswell, you can go to tryplanswell.com. We love feedback, comments, ideas for future content. If you want to come on and be a guest and share your story, that'd be amazing. But at the very least, come to the Plancraft groups. Eramos?
Awesome. I think you said it perfectly, my friend. Plancraft is absolutely lit. It's your opportunity to meet with usually about 30 other financial advisors from all over North America. And at the end of the day, we're all sharing best practices and stories and tips and tricks and stuff like that. So everyone walks away. My only recommendation is when you show up, you come with a pen and paper because there's tons of stuff that gets said on those sessions.
Yep, absolutely. And I think this is the way, this is the dessert, the capper for you, Eramos. I think I got this queued up right. Yeah, the Andy dance, right? Hey, listen, ever since we started doing this show, Eramos, I love Mondays, right? I love Mondays. And that's a big part to you, Eramos. So thank you. And all of the advisors that come and join us. Thanks for making Monday my favorite day of the week.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful week and reach out to us if so we can help you any way we can.